Welcome back, and welcome Christian. Christian is a sociologist, coach, and IoPT facilitator living in Holland. No.
In Germany.
In Germany. Then I am misinformed, excuse me.
No problem.
Yeah. So, warmly welcome wherever you are living. Now you are here. So, warmly welcome, and the stage is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much for having me here in this beautiful town. I like it actually so much here in Oslo that I may be considering I might have been a Norwegian in my past life. So I really love it here. So the topic right now, it actually fits very well with the presentation that we just saw, because maybe the helper syndrome can also provide a sort of an explanation of that kind of perpetratorship, because what we are talking about is not helping from the healthy parts of your psyche. It is really about excessive helping as a trauma response strategy. So yeah, let's start with that. And I just want to tell that I don't want to minimize helping as such. If it comes from the healthy parts, helping as such is something wonderful, of course. We are really talking about excessive helping. Yeah, that's a little bit about myself. Of course, I'm also a sufferer from this syndrome, I would say. It can be extremely hurtful if you take really permanently, constantly, the needs of other people more important than your own needs. So it can be really self-inflictive. So I was really suffering from it. I was spending 16 years of my life in international humanitarian aid in war-torn countries, countries of complex emergencies, and so forth. I was really risking my life, I was risking my health, and I must say, if I look back to this time, I was really some sort out of my mind. So the helper syndrome really can drive you a little bit mad. So yeah, it's powerful. Yeah. Due to the time, I will skip a few things. Let me jump right away into the IoPT, because the helper syndrome as such, that was described already in the 70s by a psychotherapist or analyst, Wolfgang Schmidbauer. So the helper syndrome was not defined by Franz in this case, but the IoPT provides a very good additional understanding of the helper syndrome. And I want to start with, at least from my point of view, a major goal of the IoPT is the emotional detachment from the perpetrator parents. So for as long as there is an intrapsychic perpetrator-victim dynamic involving those parents, the trauma of rejection will be reenacted over and over again, so that healing becomes impossible. And the IoPT actually aims to strengthen the healthy self via realizing what is it that still keeps myself entangled with the parents or other perpetrators, of course. In short, the need of love not received. The entanglement can be very complex, like connection with the parents' trauma feelings, attitudes, illusions of love, and so forth, and so forth. However, there is still a realistic chance, of course, to get finally emotionally disentangled from the perpetrators, so that the healthy self can become the determining force in one's own psyche. So that is, at least from my point of view, it is possible. If you continue working on it, so it will be possible. What does it actually mean, symbiotic entanglement fixation? So in cases of rejection, the psychological mother-child bond serves only to ensure survival. It prevents the development of a strong self and lays the foundation for a life as a victim and or perpetrator. A trauma of love can result in lifelong symbiotic entanglement with parents and as and lack of fulfillment of symbiotic needs. parts of the self remain fixated on the mother and father in order to still receive love or support. So if there are still parts of your psyche being fixated, really in hope finally to get some attention, to get to get love, to be seen, to be loved. So this is actually the root cause of the helper syndrome. If there are still parts being fixated on the mother or father or other perpetrators of the past. So there is a big unmet need for that missing love, and that need that might be projected later on to other persons in your life, including your clients, including your partners, or whoever. Yeah? So this is then the problem. So you go with this unmet need into the world, and let's see where I can get this missing love, maybe from some other persons. Yeah? So the helper syndrome actually describes the negative effects of excessive help on the helper, often found in social professions. I might dare to say that if you're a professional helper and you are dedicating lots of your time and energy to support and to help others, there might be a certain likelihood that you also might be affected a little bit by the helper syndrome. But you are welcome to find out yourself, maybe if we are through this presentation. Wolfgang Schmidbauer, excuse me, in his book, The Helpless Helpers, Die hilflosen Helfer, he actually described this syndrome. And in short, weakness and helplessness are accepted in others and recognized as worthy of treatment, while the self-image of one's own weakness and helplessness must be kept at bay at all cost. So the self-image is really very strong. I can handle the problems of others properly. Yeah, I'm a very strong person, and I really ignore my own trauma biography and my own helplessness that I may have experienced in earlier times. The problem is a little bit with the helper syndrome. It is often trivialized. It is like in society, helping is something that's very socially acceptable, of course, and then it is said, oh, this person likes to help others. Well, that is great. Let's encourage him. I mean, we have a lot to do in this society, so please go on. So, no, it is not to be trivialized because it's actually very much related also to the burnout syndrome. Also, the burnout syndrome that has been defined also in a very close relation to social professions, and the patterns, those mental patterns behind the helper syndrome and the burnout syndrome, I think they are quite similar. With a burnout syndrome, you are constantly giving, you are working hard, you are performing. And with the helping, it is similar. It is never enough that you do for your clients or for some other groups. It is never enough. You just keep on helping and helping and helping. So there are some symptoms related with that. Like I think I said, it's recognizing weakness and helplessness in others, but not in myself. And to avoid actually in any relations that you may have, also with your partner, not only with your clients, there's actually no eye level. So it is to avoid reciprocity in relationships, and you prefer actually helping over genuine connection in your relationships. So this is so you are leading more or less one-sided relationships where you are the dominant part. Yeah. Affected people unconsciously seek out the absent father or needy mother as a partner in all kinds of relationships because they still expect the love from their parents. And there is also a rejection of one's own need for help. So if I'm stressed out, if I'm overtaxed, no, I'm actually not able to call for help and to accept also help. I cannot do that. So there are more symptoms like the inability to express one's own feelings and needs. There is inability to accept normal affection and appreciation because it is never enough what you are doing. If you get some appreciation for helping, it's only partially satisfying. And the helper syndrome helper or HS helper primarily see what has not been achieved. So he's focusing on the shortcomings and not on the successes of his work. Also, it might be the case that you have your own needs, but you try to fulfill them indirectly over your clients or your partner. There's a constant fear of closeness. Yeah? You keep people at bay. And there can be also a latent aggression through the identification with the helper role, because there are still parts inside your psyche, they are not happy with what you are doing. So there is some sort of rebellion also going on. And so the aggression is accumulating. And especially when it comes, if you lack healthy relation with your healthy self, then you get identified with some norms, with some morality, with some ideals, which you never can fulfill. Yeah, you will never become, I don't know, a Mother Teresa or somebody like this. So yeah, no? So it's driving you more and more into exhaustion. Yeah. So with this latent aggression, helping can sometimes easily turn into violence. You have some cases in the elderly care homes, for instance, in Germany, where you find sometimes really that the helpers, they're getting violent towards the elderly. They are neglecting them, they are not taking care of them, or even sometimes they're beating them up. So there was a time where you could find quite often cases like this in the newspaper. Now to the causes of the helper syndrome. I would say basically it is rejection, especially by the mother, is the main cause. Early childhood development disorder of self-esteem. A child cannot develop itself or can only do so inadequately if it is rejected by its mother. The self develops in resonance with the mother. So for a healthy development of yourself, you need a positive resonance from your mother. Otherwise, it's not possible. No? So you cannot develop a strong, healthy self. Yeah? Then you might restrict yourself by the so-called superego. You might idealize some values, or you might also have introjected expectations of your parents that you are following, but you are not following your own actual needs. Yeah, so you're following something, something that actually doesn't belong to you. You also might have an existential guilt. So the child's conviction that they should not be there at all, that they are to blame for their mother's condition because they are a burden in her eyes, etc. And there might be then a belief like, this guilt must be worked off. So I'm actually guilty to exist in the eyes of my mother. So I have to do something to work this off, not to be any longer a burden for somebody. Yeah. Then there is the narcissistic neediness. Schmidbauer, I think that is a really good point. If you have a healthy mother-child symbiosis, so like there's a child and the mother is there for the child to 100%. The child can relax. The mother is taking care of everything that affects the child. Its well-being, its security, everything. Yeah. If you have not experienced this, there might be also this huge unmet need really to be the most important person for the mother. And this unmet need you can also then transfer to other people, so that maybe you want to become the most important person for your partner, you want to become the most important person for your clients, and so forth. And then problems are starting, because you are you are not in a healthy mood any longer. You try to make people dependent from you. So there are more causes, like hope as a result of this narcissistic neediness, for conflict and tension-free relationships, who belongs entirely to the individual, the helper. But the problems then arise when patients or clients, if they show some signs of individuality, if they don't follow your advice any longer, and so forth. The desire for symbiotic fusion is so urgent because it is fueled by a deep-rooted feeling of rejection by the mother, of not being lovable. And through rejection, there's an identification of the helper with the superego, morality, conscious, intellect, reason, instead of connection with one's healthy self. So the main concern is to proceed according to method, level of training, hierarchy, or according to some therapeutic school, in order to maintain relations of power. So in the end, you end up maintaining power relations, but not relations on eye level, where people can benefit from and prospering and growing. Yeah, so it will be always restricted to power hierarchies. More causes. The HS helpers, they want to be loved, but they cannot accept love for fear of being rejected again. So they keep all this appreciation at bay. Overwork as a result of striving for ideals that have little to do with their own personality. They orient themselves toward the ideal which they were perceived as tolerable by their mother, like, for instance, conformist, kind, no backtalk, obedient, loyal. And they were loved for those behaviors, but not for who they are. So the belief here could be, I am loved for what I do, achieve, and perform, but not for who I am. And there might be a victim mentality also, so only as a victim, I might have a place. Only through self-sacrifice I have value. So only if I do what is expected from me to do, that gives me some value for my own existence. So this pattern of constant helping, that can really lead to ultimate breakdown. If you look at burnout, the final stage of burnout, for instance, that is the ultimate collapse of your psychological and physiological system. You can actually die from it. Yeah? But the helping is there then really to block out one's own victimhood. Yeah? And clients and patients distract from one's own trauma biography. And those are statements I really heard from colleagues when I was working abroad. Like, look at those people here in need, in somewhere in Africa or so. They are really suffering. No? So we are still well off with our 80 hours working hours per week, and so forth. Those are the people who are really suffering. So this kind of work, this helping, can really distract you from your own misery. Yeah? Unconsciously, of course, those patterns, they run unconsciously, helping and giving until I'm finally seen and loved. Actually by the mother, but this love will never come. And it cannot be replaced by any other person or institution. The pain remains and is numbed by the mode of constant helping. Yeah? So what is here the impact on the client-patient relationship, or maybe the possible impact? If I ignore, if I split off as a coach or a therapist, my own personality, my identity, my experience. So I cannot create eye level with my client. So, yeah, I mean, and my personality actually and my identity is my major tool with which I'm actually working. So, but if I ignore it, if I separate it off, so I cannot create actually a relationship on eye level with my clients if I treat them as a needy patient or something like this. So that the clients, they cannot evolve. I mean, only if there's an eye level which creates space for personal development, so there can be some movement, there can be some way forward. Yeah. Another thing is with the HS helpers, they actually are in need of permanent crisis and threats. They are that much desperately in need that they even make it up. They invent crisis. Yeah? I will come to some examples later. So this is, they need it as a legitimation for their trauma surviving strategy. But if you are so far that you are actually you are about to invent crises and threats, then the actual help or maybe the healthy intentions that you may have, they finally turn into the opposite. Yeah. So. Yeah, and also there's another point like diverse patient needs are subjected to rigid theoretical systems and in some cases unnecessary procedures. Yeah. I just remember recently a client just reported how she was treated by her cardiologist who absolutely did not listen to her. I mean, all her blood, everything was fine. It was just psychosomatic she was suffering from. And then the doctor has told her, okay, now we have 10 appointments for you. We have this and this and this procedure. And she was really re-traumatized than sitting in front of me. This is also a form of violence, actually, really not listening to the patient or client and maybe to listen also what other reasons might be behind of some sort of illness. So also on the other hand, if you are constantly in a selflessness mode, yeah, that makes you also manipulable and economically exploitable by institutions. Like in my case, also there are some NGOs, humanitarian organizations, they really benefit. No? They benefit from people who are absorbed by this helper syndrome, paying them really low wages. Yeah. So yeah, that can be really a disadvantage for you. No? Yeah, HS helpers, they want to be the most important person in their clients' lives. And then, not only sometimes, but I think very often, taking away the space they need for their own development and healing. No? And the relationship is almost always characterized by authority. And the boundaries actually between professional authority and actual power, they are fluid because normally the experts are not to be contradicted. I mean, at least in Germany, if you look at press releases and media reports, nowadays they mostly start with expert XYZ is saying this and this. Yeah? It's not to be contradicted. Yeah. That's a bit of a digression, the narcissistic helper. About a narcissism, yeah. From my point of view, narcissism is a trauma survival strategy resulting from severe rejection by the mother, identity trauma, so that I become the idealized version of myself that my mother envisions. Loving, compliant, obedient, inconspicuous to the point of invisibility. That is what I identify with. Yes, I even love this distorted image of myself because I'm allowed to do so. And I identify completely with my mother's needs. My whole life revolves around her fulfillment, their fulfillment. I become an expert. Those are the experts, the experts of the needs of their own mother. I become an expert in my mother's needs because this gives me a secure place at her side and a semblance of meaning to my existence. And this is an digression about my own example in this respect. So I also was rejected by the mother, and then this survival strategy, helper syndrome, actually started with a survival fantasy. It was like my mother is not well because she was mistreated and abused by my father. So, but she is not well, and this might be the reason that she cannot love me. So then I'm taking on the mission to help her, to support her, maybe even to save her, so that she can feel better and then maybe finally love me in the end. Yeah. I become the saving protector, or maybe even the saving knight of my mother, willing to sacrifice anything for her well-being. I become the number one expert of my mother's needs, and this pseudo-identity expert secures my place at my mother's side. Anyone else who is close to my mother, I was actually perceiving as a threat because I have to prove constantly that I am the only expert who knows what is best for my mother. So this is how this helper syndrome started in my case. And I have applied later on this pattern in my working life, in my private relationships, and so forth. Yeah? So it was really strong in my system. Yeah, but then that's a positive side of the coin. Then I came across IoPT, and through a lot of self-encounters, I was able to break through this pattern. And it took a while, but I think it was quite successful, I hope. So those are types of, in my career and up to now, I'm meeting still with a lot of different types of helpers. And this is what I found out. I mean, maybe you find yourself also there. I'm definitely, I think I belong more to the experts, but you have the do-gooders. And actually, the do-gooders, they don't do anything good by themselves, but they always claim that others should do. Maybe even their own client should put more effort into the work, or the taxpayer, or I don't know who, no? But they love to demand, yeah. They like to show they are good without any real interest in people in need. Their interest is narcissistic self-enhancement. The experts, they claim they have the authority to work with clients. They impose what they think is the best for their clients onto their clients. Some of them become even gurus to make clients completely dependent on them. Yeah. And this is not the job of a therapist. The job of a therapist is to support the individual to find out for herself or himself what is best for her, yeah, or him. So this is a job, and not like come up with a so-called solution and now you're following this solution. That's actually, from my point of view, not the job of a therapist. Then you have the rescuer, likes to appear actually very self-sacrificing and very understanding. However, he tends to display a paternalistic attitude. This is what I came across very often while working overseas. There is a lot in this development aid. There's a lot of paternalistic attitude. So we are the Europeans. We are educated. We know what is best for people in Africa, for instance. It's still widespread. So I didn't assume this before, but it is still the case. So he prefers to look after or even save people rather than encourage them to develop independently. He is not interested in clients becoming healthier, but rather in treating them as mere objects of care. And this is one big danger if you are involved in this helper syndrome, that you treat people no longer as people, but as mere objects. So in my case, at the end of my work overseas, I was just counting beneficiary lists, numbers of relief items distributed, number of houses erected, just tickle it off. I haven't had any real interest any longer in the people, which is not a good thing, of course. Then you have also the buddies, I would call them. They actually want normal relationships with their clients, taking therapeutic sessions even as opportunities for having social interaction for their own benefit. They are most of the time very nice, but they are not very effective in their work. So those are some types that I identified. Now I would like to show you some examples of perpetrators who are, from my standpoint, at least in parts, they suffered from this kind of helper syndrome. Those are actually examples where the helper syndrome really turned into the opposite. This man here, his name is Otto Ohlendorf. And Ohlendorf, he was one of the commanders, he was the commander of the so-called Einsatzgruppe D, which was an execution squad during the Second World War in the East. It was operating there between 1941 and 1942. Under his command, around 90,000 people, mainly Jews, were systematically shot. So he was, of course, a member of the so-called SS. What does SS mean? SS means, in German, Schutzstaffel. In English, it is protection squad. So maybe let's think in a few seconds this kind of madness. I mean, those people, they were killing in the East alone, in the occupied East alone, 15 million civilians. They did not protect anything. They did not save anything. They were just constantly killing people, murdering people, destroying whole communities. But that was their belief, apparently, because they were thinking, okay, we have to do it because the Jews are our enemy. So, and the situation in Germany by beginning of the Second World War was as such. There was an overall population of maybe 62 million people in comparison to maybe 200,000 to 300,000 Jews. And most of the Jews, they were perfectly assimilated. Some of them, they were serving also during the First World War. They have been decorated, they were educated. Nobody of them went public saying, now we want to take over Germany or the government. It was just a fiction. It was absolutely made up that this small minority would pose any threat to the people. But nonetheless, millions of people followed this narrative. So it is really kind of crazy. When he was tried at Nuremberg, so then Ohlendorf, he was asked, especially with regard to the children, why also shooting the children? And then he replied, these measures were necessary to protect the troops and the occupied territories and to prevent the children from later becoming avengers against Germany. So he had really this belief that the killing of innocent children, that is some sort of protection. Yeah. So really quite mad. And it was reported that he went to the gallows actually after he was got the verdict with an apparent very relaxed, with a very clear conscience. So he was really convinced that he's doing or he has done the right thing. There are some more examples now from from Germany, because I am a German, so I know a little bit about those gentlemen here. So also during Corona, Corona was something that has been made up to a certain extent. It was certainly not the big threat as it was presented by the politicians and the media. At least it was no bigger threat maybe than the flu or something, yeah. But also here the quotations from Karl Lauterbach, for instance, former health minister, he was saying our top priority is to protect the population during the health crisis. Or another former health minister, Jens Spahn, he said the lockdown was necessary at the time to protect the population from the virus. Meanwhile, we all know what actually really happened. So we have millions of traumatized victims of coercive measures. So medical treatments have been interrupted. The contacts between the elderly and their relatives have been interrupted. People were dying because of this, millions of traumatized children and youth, and so forth, and so forth. A really backslash for the economy as well. Yeah, and you have hundreds of thousands of vaccine damaged individuals, and also, of course, vaccine-related deaths. Yeah, so because the vaccines, they have not been tested enough. Yeah. So there's another gentleman from Germany with regard to the issue of climate protection. So I was also, at the end of my career in the helping business, I was also involved in so-called climate protection projects. Of course, they did also not protect anything. Even this gentleman here, Robert Habeck, after he lost office, after a lost election, even he admitted that something like climate protection does not exist. But also he made a statement here, climate protection means protecting the foundations of life for our children and grandchildren. Well, in fact, right now, the economic foundation of Germany is destroyed because of this climate-saving madness. We had in 2025, 25,000 corporate bankruptcies. Now in 2026, there are 30,000 to be expected. The car industry is down. The steel industry is down. Companies are fleeing the country because of the highest energy prices worldwide. Because sun and wind, they don't come for free. Those are energy forms that are highly subsidized. Yeah? So the whole economy now is collapsing. The country is going to be deindustrialized. So there are apparently there will be no foundations for wealth anymore in the future. So that is the reality behind it. Okay, let's go to the danger of prolonged dependence. What I also see quite often, like in working groups, IoPT groups, but also other therapeutic groups, there's the issue of transference between therapist and client, which is far too rarely being addressed from my point of view. And I'm surprised sometimes because as we are all trauma-informed individuals, I mean, if there is a transference coming up, this is point A, it is very normal, it can happen. But also it provides an opportunity to learn. So why is this now? That I confuse maybe my therapist with my father, let's talk about it, let's clarify it. Because if you establish a therapist-client relationship based on transference, this will not lead to good results for your client. Yeah, if he's constantly, if he's actually then doing therapy in order to please you, I mean that's not a good thing. So yeah, some therapists, because of this narcissistic neediness, they need to become the most important person of the client, and I'm hearing sometimes those statements, well, if you are traumatized and if you were rejected by the mother, actually it is necessary that you make lifelong therapy. I disagree with that. It doesn't need to be a lifelong therapy, that you need to work lifelong on your issues related to your trauma. Not necessarily. I think this is very much your decision. If you want to have lifelong therapy, you will have lifelong therapy. I mean, that's for sure. But if you work constantly on your symbiotic fixation, on your emotional disentanglement with perpetrators, I mean, why should it take lifelong? Yeah. So, but I'm hearing this very, very often. And then sometimes, of course, it happens also that some clients or therapists, they confuse working groups also with a substitute of family. I mean, that is not the purpose of a working group from my point of view. It's not like creating a substitute for family. That also does not work. And there sometimes, therapy becomes a purpose in itself, a form of substitute relationship for its own sake. That also happens. And I think it is the responsibility of a therapist or coach to address it. A colleague of mine, quite a renowned trauma therapist in Germany, she's even setting a deadline for her clients, like 6 months, that they are able to establish at least more or less healthy and constructive relationships in the outside, because it is not the job, not the mission of therapy to make people fit to be further abused. And I'm also, as a coach, I'm also addressing it from time to time. So how are your relationships now developing in the outside? Because it doesn't make sense that people are coming to you, they get a little bit fueled, they get a little bit stability, and then they go straight back to their abusive relationships. I know that it cannot happen from one day to another. It takes time, and sometimes it takes months or even years, so I would be never setting a deadline like this colleague. Yeah, but if there are no constructive, healthy relationships to be established as a result of therapy, then, from my point of view, therapy is quite useless. And that needs to be discussed, that needs to be addressed. So how do you create maybe the eye level in the coach-therapist-client relationship? Yeah, first of all, by recognizing, so we are both individuals, and we both suffered. Yeah? We both are traumatized this way or the other. We both are individuals and therefore the experts of our own life and psyche. I cannot become the expert of somebody else's psyche. I can only provide some assistance and inspiration and inputs that this person becomes aware of his restrictions, of his own psyche, but I cannot become the expert. Only the individual themselves can liberate themselves in the end. We are equal in our diversity in how we respond to trauma. We both have a healthy self, and we both are not perfect. So we are all in a constant process towards ourselves. And there is room, there need to be some room to address transference and irritations. Yeah. Then to the purpose of therapy. Their purpose is it needs to have a goal and an end. At some point, it needs also to be ended. Otherwise, it's not therapy. What is there? What needs to be treated? Next point I already mentioned. And the therapists, they need to support the clients to find out what they are actually wishing for themselves and not to impose their own wishes and will onto the clients. And at some point, the clients also must experience noticeable relief and improvement in their situation. Yeah, because this is also, of course, the purpose of therapy. Yeah. And also the purpose need to be always strengthening the healthy parts, the healthy self, and not to strengthen surviving strategies like you hear it very often. resilience, self-optimizations, that you are getting more efficient in suppressing yourself. I mean, that cannot be the purpose of therapy. And therapy is no program. So colleagues of mine in the coaching area, they are offering programs for half a year, 1 year, 2 years, and like if you join this program, then you will become some sort of rich or enlightened or I don't know what. I mean, it is not. Therapy is no career, it is no program, it is no levels, there are no levels of performance, yeah. It is first of all, from my point of view, an opportunity. It is an opportunity, a space where you can find yourself, where you can meet yourself. Yeah, and the final goal should be, in the end, a person who is self-determined, self-regulated, self-convinced, self-reliant, yeah, and no longer being dependent on anybody, yeah, to lead her or his life, yeah. So a person who knows who they are and what they want. A person also in healthy relations, because if you find yourself then, as a result of therapy, in constructive and healthy relations, that is, from my point of view, real transformation. This is a real transformation. Then a kind of new life can start if you're meeting now really people who are good to you. I mean, where you can benefit from, and no longer perpetrator types. Yeah? And a coach or a therapist, they are there to help to end dependency and not to prolong it. Yeah. It's also the literature. Unfortunately, the book from Wolfgang Schwipper is only available in German. And what I also find, I mentioned this already today, very helpful is Franz's book, Symbiosis and Autonomy, about this issue of symbiotic fixation. And it's really crucial to understand this, and with the intention method, you have an excellent method at hand to solve this kind of fixation. Yeah. Thank you very much.